12 Anthropic employees, $470,000, showing up late in Becerra's filings. So much for the idea that this money only backs losers. If you're just joining, California's race is in its general election shape now. Democrat Xavier Becerra came out of the top two primary ahead of Republican Steve Hilton, with billionaire Tom Steyer landing third. The slow count fraud narrative lingered for a while, but Hilton advanced, and he said he saw no significant fraud. That took the air out of the claim that Republicans got locked out.
This is the California governor's race. Today, AI cash and billionaire money crash the party, and the two don't point the same way. Sergey Brin's writing 8-figure checks. A dozen Anthropic staffers just lit up Becerra's ledger. We start with that filing. We're staying on Becerra-Hilton general election. Follow the show and you won't miss what comes next.
From Paul Kitagaki Jr. at Sacramento Bee.
A dozen employees working for the artificial intelligence company Anthropic provided a late surge in contributions to Democrat Xavier Becerra's campaign for California governor in the final days and weeks of his primary. The roughly $470,000 in collective spending far outstripped employees of any other company to Becerra. They deposited more than a third of that total on June 1st, the day before the primary election he went on to win.
Here's the reported version of the tech money story we've been circling all week. The Sacramento Bee found 12 Anthropic employees gave roughly $470,000 to Becerra, with more than a third deposited on June 1st, the day before he won the primary.
Do the math on that. 12 people, 470 grand. It reads like a coordinated cluster, not some grassroots wave. And a third lands in a single day? Hard to buy that 12 people independently woke up and wrote checks.
It's the largest single company haul Becerra took. And it wasn't just him. 3 of those employees sent nearly $59,000 to Bonta, and the company's political arm spread more than $30,000 across 7 lawmakers, including Speaker Rivas, all on June 2nd.
Right, and that's the tension nobody's naming. The big headline is billionaire money landing in California, but that money's been fighting Sacramento. This Anthropic cash went to the Democrat, who's the Sacramento machine's guy. AI money's hedging toward the machine, not against it.
And the motive isn't exactly hidden. States are writing their own AI rules while Washington sits on its hands. Anthropic's been pushing for stricter standards. You don't have to guess when the policy fight is sitting right there. Christian Leonard, writing in San Francisco Chronicle.
So why, after decades of political aloofness, has the world's third wealthiest person dropped more than $85 million on California elections this year, instantly becoming one of the state's biggest political donors of the past quarter century? The answer involves more plutocrats than just Brin. Out of the 30 donors who donated at least $1 million to state or federal-level political causes in California this year, 21 gave more in 2026 than in any of the prior 25 years.
More than $85 million from one guy who sat out politics for a decade. Sergey Brin spent more on California this year than he gave in the previous 20 combined.
And here's where that framing gets too neat. Brin's money fought the Sacramento machine. The Anthropic cluster we just hit, that $470,000, went to Becerra, the Sacramento machine's guy.
Right, so when the Chronicle calls it billionaires waking up, that makes it sound like one wave. But these are two tides running opposite directions, and that keeps getting missed.
Put that next to the SEIU wealth tax push, 1.6 million signatures. Brin's $85 million is a pretty loud answer to 1 million-plus people asking him to pay more.
That asymmetry is the story. Signatures are bodies. $85 million is leverage. They don't trade one for one.
270 to win is tracking the polling here.
Berkeley IGS, June 11. Nearly 8,600 registered voters. Becerra 52, Hilton 31. That's a 21-point gap with a 2-point margin of error, so we're not talking about noise.
And it's the freshest public number on the board. The LA Times had it on the 11th. One survey, though. I'd want a second pollster in that range before anyone files it under settled.
Here's the part that bugs me. Becerra won the primary at what, a 24% average? Now he's at 52 head-to-head. You're looking at a different electorate. All those voters who backed the 7 losing candidates piling onto the Democrat by default.
Right. June was an 8-way scrum. November's a binary. He clearly leads. I want to know what's underneath that 52. The coalition that nominated him, or the donor names showing up in his filings now.
And that's where the Anthropic money we just hit gets interesting. AI company cash lands on the frontrunner the same week he's up 21. If Hilton can't turn that into a populist wedge from 31%, he's got nothing.
A 21-point hole is a lot of ground to make up on vibes about tech donors. But yeah, that's the only lever in this poll he's got left to pull.
So when voters see a sudden pile of donations from employees at one company, say a big AI firm, right before an election, what are they supposed to think? Is that coordination, a policy bet, or just rich people doing rich people things?
Yeah, and California gives us a clean example. In the final days of the June primary, a dozen employees at Anthropic, the AI company, collectively sent roughly $470,000 to Xavier Becerra's governor campaign. More than a third landed on June 1st, the day before the primary he went on to win. That's from Sacramento Bee reporting. California disclosure rules do make donors list their employer, which is why we can see the Anthropic cluster at all. So, yes, that's real transparency. What those rules don't capture is the why. Whether colleagues coordinated, whether a shared policy interest drove the timing, or whether executives signaled approval. And per Cal Matters, tech companies involved in AI spent $39 million last year influencing California lawmakers. So this isn't happening in a vacuum. The industry is already placing bets around the people who'll shape AI regulation. Voters can see the basics, the names, the amounts, the employer, but the motivations and any informal coordination mostly stay in the dark.
If disclosure rules already show the employer, what's actually missing? Is the gap really coordination, or is there a bigger structural hole here?
It's bigger than the employer line. Disclosed dollars are only part of the picture. California is also dealing with undisclosed spending through influencers and other channels that don't get the same scrutiny, as Cal Matters found with paid influencer posts that didn't always carry proper disclosures. So the system can show you names and checks, while a lot of persuasion happens off to the side. Going into the general, the pressure point is whether Becerra, now the primary winner, gets sharper questions about his AI industry backing, and, separately, exactly what AI rules he's committing to. Whether the money bought nothing, or simply arrived alongside a position he already held.
Got a story idea, a question, or a correction for us? Send it to California Governor's Race at lanternpodcast.com. We read your notes, and they help make this briefing sharper. Next up for us, the November 3rd general election between Becerra and Hilton. We'll keep tracking the race as it moves toward that vote. You'll find links to every story we covered today in the show notes, so if one caught your ear, you can read more there. That's California Governor's Race for today. This is a Lantern Podcast.